All right, so this is Wally again, and I want to talk about some bad ideas that I've been seeing in the startup world here recently. So, you know, where do some of these bad ideas come from? Well, there's a lot of different reasons that they come about. I mean, anytime you bring you know, something to a discussion, people have a bias. Uh, you know, the most important, yeah, I love to hear this. I used to listen to years ago there was this series on YouTube, shit entrepreneurs say, and it just had some of the great, you know, jokes of the entrepreneurship world. And one of them was, had a guy had the little marketing shirt on, and he says, "You make a startup with a marketing team." So you have a bias, okay? Because I have seen people say, the equivalent of you create a startup with a marketing team. Nah. Anyway, people bring inexperience. I made a lot of bad decisions. I will make bad decisions in the future just because, but we learn from these, right? Arrogance. Arrogance causes a lot of bad ideas. And I've seen it. You tend to find it with people who have access to more money. Um, you know, Also, understand some of these bad ideas come from people who want to sell you something. So, whether it's their social media um, training or, their XYZ training or their expertise or whatever, understand that a lot of bad ideas do come from people who want to sell you something. Okay. So here was one of the first ones that I've seen here recently. And that is that, you should build your own MVP. If you are a non technology founder, you should go and build your own MVP, which means that you should do what? You know, no, this is incredibly horrible idea. All right. Um, Technology people tend to say this to non-technology founders. Um, the problem is they forget about all the experience that they had. They view code as easy, but they've been doing it all their life. So how you can take, you know, 20, 30, 40 years of experience in something and tell someone else that they could do it really easily if they just take a, 12-week boot camp or something like that. They just don't appreciate the amount of time and lifelong learning that goes into learning how to code. Okay. Um, a non-technology founder is not going to understand how to implement business rules. They're not going to spend time trying to, learn code, learn about security, learning about the intricacies of a business such that they could actually repeat, that in code. That's that This is just crazy. This is not going to work. So don't. I highly advise people don't think that you are going to be able to build your own MVP if you are a non-technology founder. Go find a person who can be in charge of the technology and ask them to be a co-founder. Okay, treat them well. Next item, and it really just I was like, this was like whiplash. Um, and this tends to come from marketing and finance people, but this view that code and technology is low value. Okay, now let me understand that. You're creating a software technology startup, and you're saying that the very stuff that you're creating is of low value. I, the whiplash that comes from that statement, I'm like, what in the world? And you tend to hear it, from people. uh, I guess really the first place I kind of heard the analogy to this was when I was at Coca Cola, 30 plus years ago. And the line, there's no such thing as bad privates, only bad generals. The speculation being that, you know, the coach puts you in the correct direction, and whoever you have out there blocking for them doesn't really matter. Okay. This is really, really horrible idea because the players matter. The, the, the people doing the work matter. The privates matter. Okay. But really, this becomes the beginning of the argument for cheap offshoring. And, I've had several customers who've gone this route and it just doesn't work. And there's really a big problem with it because beyond the fact that it doesn't work is that it tends to get you into this ideology, this idea of being what I would call price anchored. Okay. Because there's no difference between people. The people who you use are the same, whether it's the guy who's down the street from you who works with you face to face, or somebody in, someplace else that has, lower cost of living, lower this, lower that. Well, there's a reason why, those things can be cheaper. Those folks can be cheaper. Okay. So don't fall for that. I always like to share several of my stories on this. Working with a startup down out of Atlanta, and they had spent, you know, about $500,000 on with an offshoring company, and literally had nothing that worked. And how do I know it was nothing that worked? Because when I first talked to him, let me see your website, let me see what you've got going. I took that, loaded it up on my iPad, went off to lunch, was trying to figure out how to create an account. Couldn't create an account. It was a late lunch, probably like 1:30 or so. Started talking to some other people at this place. I'm just sitting up at the bar and, hey, can you create an account here? No, they couldn't figure it out either. Everybody else finally leaves, and I'm talking to the lady who's the bartender, and I'm like, "Hey, can you create an account here?" She couldn't create an account either. So um, the point is, you've got to have people who have been through, these issues, and you want to let them do their thing. Okay, let them write the code that's going to work because you're going to be happier. You're going to be able to make quicker choices. You're going to be able to see mistakes happening in closer to real time. So don't think, the bottom line is, don't think that the code and the technology is low value. It's not. It's very high value. I've often heard the argument that there are two things that bring innovation to a business. One is the actual innovation, the other is the marketing of that innovation. So you've got to, the innovation, in this case, the code and the technology, really important. Okay. Then also, I just see it over and over and over is, you know, low code, no code solutions. Um, so let me throw out this example. You want to be you want to provide to a bar a list of people. Let's say you're bartender, you got two or three bartenders, or how many ever bartenders are supposed to be in that night, and you know some of them are missing. You want to be able to have some bartenders on, in effect, on call. So you want to be a service that um, provides those. Okay, what is the what's the probably the simplest thing that you could try out with one or two bars, and that probably is Google Docs. Okay, but understand that it's a notebook, it's a piece of paper, it's a pen, and you're working the phone. Okay, so bar XYZ calls, says, hey, I need two guys because my regular guys are going to be out. Okay, so you start going down your list, who can be there. All right. That is a viable use of Google Docs, but it's not something you're going to be able to scale up to 5 or 10 or 20 bars. Okay. So understand if you get too far into this low code, no code world, you're going to be spending a lot of wasted time because you're going to throw the code away. Okay. You're also going to be locked in. Now, I'm not talking about just lock in from the standpoint of vendor lock in. I'm talking about feature set lock in. Okay. You are going to be limited to whatever features that that platform exposes to you. And that can be maddening. Okay. Because I've had this. I got dragged into one application years ago that was built on something that, at the time I wouldn't have used it. I use it now, but at the time I would not have used it. And, you know, I was like, well, the platform right now doesn't support this. And, they're like, well, what are you talking about? I can do this right now on my iPhone. I was like, no, no, no. I'm talking about the development platform doesn't support what you're trying to explain that. That's just a losing proposition. Okay. So understand that your early stage code is actually something that you want to use as a building block to go to new features, new functions, and you want to build on it, not have something that you're going to in effect throw away. Okay, think about your MVP for a minute. Okay, because that's really boils down to what is an MVP, and we could go on for hours about what an MVP is. Minimum viable product. What is this? Think of it as it's going to be a building block for future features. So you're going to have some basics there. You want to be able to build on it. An MVP really is your simplest set of features and business rules that you can have a conversation with one or more customers. Okay. But it's your starting point. Hey, we've got this. We think this is going to work for us. What more, do we need to have? That kind of stuff. You can start having those conversations. Um, Also, don't think of it as an MVP it's not really a stake in the ground, saying, hey, it's this, and then we're going to go talk to a bunch of users. Well, you can have this, talk to 3 or 4, say, oh, we looks like we're going to need to have features X, Y, and Z. Well, you can add them in, and you can have, you know, version 2 of your MVP and version 3 of your MVP, and on and on. So think about it. An MVP is something that you can also build on, and that's really important. Um, and then, finally, also one of those things that you want to be able to build into your MVP is a mechanism to get paid. Okay. Getting paid is a feature of an MVP. Why is it a feature of an MVP? Because I can guarantee that an investor is going to ask you, how are we going to get paid in this? And the answer had better not be, we're going to have a ton of users and we're going to figure that out later on. Now, that worked for Google in 1997, 1998. That was 25 years ago. Okay. Doesn't work in 2023, soon to be 2024. Okay. You have to have a plan. You need to have something demonstratable, and you want to be able to get paid because your investors are going to push you to want to get paid. And I can guarantee if you don't have a plan to get paid, either one, the investors aren't going to invest, or two, if they have invested, then you may be sitting on the side of the road and they may have swapped you out for somebody who does have some kind of a plan to make money so that they can eventually make money. Anyway, these are a few thoughts. Just wanted to throw them out there. If you've got any more questions, put them in the comments, put them, let me know them. You can send me a DM. You can send me whatever. Anyway, thanks a lot, guys. We'll talk to you later. Take care.